Hey guys, this is Nico and I'm back for another review. Today I will be reviewing the Mars Volta's Francis the Mute. This review was actually by request by one of my subscribers, and I decided I would do the request, and he suggested that I listen to the whole album, which I only listened to the first 3 tracks, which are Cygnus Vismet Cygnus, The Widow, and La Via La Vasquez. But after these 3 tracks, the album turns into a whole trip, or a different puck game, if you will. It's totally different. But anyhow, I have 3 goals in this album. I'm going to do a background of the band first, or a bio if you will, and a background of the album. Then I'm going to do a description of the physical album, where I'm going to go into depth on the artwork of the jewel case, as well as taking you through the booklet and showing you something very secret behind here that Mars Volta's decided to keep hidden from us. Which, spoiler alert, it's a hidden track. But anyhow, so we're going to start with the first goal. We're going to do a background of the band and the album. The album was released on March 1st, 2005, by the Mars Volta, which are an American rock band from El Paso, Texas, which formed in 2001, but sadly broke up in 2013, right after the release of their latest album, Nocturnicate. I'll review at a later session. And basically, the Mars Volta incorporates elements from other genres such as Latin music, more specifically salsa music in this album, and they incorporate ambient music, which is a very large component of this album, which we'll see later. The ambient includes just like drones, as well as just soundscapes from like traffic on the streets and the such. Then obviously progressive rock is a huge undertone genre of this album. But I wouldn't put it in the category of normal prog rock, like Spock's Beard, for example, which is simple, happy melodies and the such. But then again, I don't care for Spock's Beard and that neo-prog scene too much. It's not advancing music. But in my opinion, the Mars Volta is advancing music because they do stuff that somebody else wouldn't do, whereas Spock's Beard would be basically copying Yes and the early prog rock artists. So that's just a rant of mine. I won't take it too far. But anyhow, the Mars Volta are actually a product of members from a previous band called At the Drive-In, which were a post-hardcore band, and 2 members decided to leave. Omar Rodriguez Lopez and Cedric Bixler-Zavala. They wanted to leave because the band was becoming too commercialized and that they were having a lot of drugs. So they're worried about drug abuse. So these 2 members decided to form another band, but they didn't name it the Mars Volta immediately. It's mainly a live show band, which is some of their stuff can be heard from scab dates here, which I'll review at a later date. So actually they're called the Mars Volta here as well, so I guess so they could tie that music in with the rest of the discography of the band. But yeah, their shows obviously ironically were characterized by heavy drug use. So 2 of the members from Puerto Rico, Omar Rodriguez Lopez, and I assume his brother, and they're both from Bayamon, Puerto Rico. So that covers the biography of the band. Now we'll go into the background of the album. Francis the Mute was recorded from January to October 2004 and was released March 1st, 2005. The album sold 123,000 copies in the opening week. So, pretty crazy. And then actually it got mixed criticism and actually got mixed reviews. So the Metacritic gave it a 75 out of 100, and AllMusic gave it 4.5 stars. But some reviewers accused the band of pretentiousness because of the quality of the music they put in there, according to their biases. But personally, this album's a masterpiece. And then I'll give you some more facts here. Miranda and Cassandra Gemini were split due to the band not being paid, due to the band that let me rephrase it here. Miranda and Cassandra Gemini were split because if they didn't split them, the band would be paid EP wages, but if they split them, they'd be paid full album wages. Despite, if they kept them together, this would be longer than most albums, but the record business doesn't make sense. Luckily, you can get away with it now posting on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. You don't have to be part of the record business anymore. But it was 2005, so the singles on the album were The Widow and La Via La Vasquez. So, alright, this covers the background of the album itself, I think. Oh, also, I forgot a couple of other things. The album actually includes such members as Flea and John Frusciante of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Larry Harlow, who is a salsa or Latin pianist, and then actually another special guest, the Puerto Rican Frog, which is named the Coqui. So, and another interesting fact of the album is Rodriguez-Lopez met with each member of the band, and they recorded separately so they could achieve the complexion of the album as well, which I think is a good thing, another interesting way they would record. Then there are musical motifs in this album as well, such as the acoustics you hear like at the beginning of Cygnus, Vismus, Cygnus, and on the hidden track. I mean, it's not a hidden track, it's not on the album, but personally I think it was meant to be the title track, Francis the Mute. You hear the same acoustic in there, and then you hear the same acoustic motif as well as in the final movement of Cassandra Gemini's Sarcophagy, which is the same name as the first movement of Cygnus, Vismus, Cygnus, which I guess can explain the musical motif we hear there. And if in case you guys don't know what a musical motif is, it's a recurring theme in a work. So, see what else we got here. That about covers the introduction to the band as well as the album. So right now we're going to head towards reviewing the physical aspects of the album, such as the artwork and the jewel case and the booklet. So stay tuned. Alright guys, so here's the physical jewel case album itself. So initially, when you first look at the album, you see two guys, this is relatively normal, two relatively normal guys with bags on their heads. This is pretty awesome right here, because this proves that this album is going to be quite strange. So I'll give some observations here. So there are two weird guys with bags on their heads sitting in two vintage cars. It gets stranger, trust me. But as an aside though, on Reddit I saw somebody dressed up as one of these guys for Halloween at one of their parties, and then they just sat there all night, and that had to be pretty scary. So for any of you wanting to do Halloween this year, this is definitely a good idea for a Halloween costume, and I'd highly suggest it. But anyhow, let's start with the outside of the album here. So of course we got the weird, strange artwork in the front, but as we go to the side, nothing here obviously. Then you just have the album name here, Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta from Universal Music. And then you have the back here with the Slender Man-like character here in the back with a different type of bag on his head. Looks like a different tint of color. But anyhow, you have the name of the album, Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta. Then you have the name of the first track, Cygnus, Vismus, Cygnus, with the first movement, Sarcophagy, second movement, Umbilical Syllables, third, Facilis Descenus Averni, and the fourth movement, Consafo. Then the second track, The Widow, third track, La Via La Vasquez, then the fourth track, Miranda That Ghost Just Isn't Holy Anymore, Veda Macum, Pour Another Ice Pick, Perseus Paramena, aka the animal-like track. Then you have the fourth track, Consafo. I mean the fourth movement. Then you have the fifth track, Cassandra Gemini. Then you have the first movement, Tarantism. Second movement, Plant a Nail in that Navel Stream. Or plant a nail in the navel stream. In the third movement, Famine Pulse. The fourth movement, multiple spouse wounds, and the fourth, sarcophagy. So then you have all this FBI warning here, then you have all the website information here in the back, but then obviously copyright, Universal Records, Broadway, New York, all that stuff. But now let's go into the actual jewels of the jewel case. So here we go. I'll show you something pretty cool right here. You got alternate artwork. So here's the one that no, that wasn't it. Here's the one everybody here saw in the front. You have a guy with his hands out, looks like a gangster almost, but with a bag in his head. Then you have this guy here, but both characters change around on this next side. And it may not look like it because of the similarity of attire, but they do indeed change here. Then you have one over here, other here. Notice this guy doesn't have his arm out. This guy's different, slightly different attire, but nevertheless in the same vehicles. So they can be game in itself. Spot the differences in each artwork. So anyway, now let's get inside the booklet itself. So you have the album recorded in such places as Los Angeles, California, or Los Angeles, and then you have it produced in Burbank, Van Nuys, Byron Bay, Australia, New York City, and mastered by other people. Then you have the famous artist from Pink Floyd, who unfortunately passed away, but his Storm Thurgoson, who did a record like Wish You Were Here. So then you have the main members of the band here, and these guys can be assumed to be brothers, Omar and Marcel. I don't know for certain though. Then you have special guests like Flea, who does the trumpet solos on The Widow, and Miranda that Gustos Isn't Holy Anymore. It's from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and John Frusciante is from the Red Hot Chili Peppers as well. Then you have, this is the dream of many of the band members, Larry Harlow actually playing the salsa piano, or the Latin piano, for La Villa, La Vasquez, and Cassandra. So then you have many other guests here that probably are the more underrated, the violinists and the trumpetist. And this I want to make note of. Here's the background for the single Francis the Mute. So the title track that wasn't included on the album with the same name. Another thing that doesn't make sense at the Mars Volta. Then you have Cygnus Vismum Cygnus with a bunch of strange lyrics here. And then you have, of course, some more artwork here. Talons Scratch My Sweet. Then you have The Widow here, and then you have, of course, that famous line, I'll never sleep alone, their chorus, of course. This reminds me of actually Wish You Were Here's cover art. Very much so, because of the distance here, but except it doesn't have a guy burning, shaking the hand of another guy. So of course there's another, this part of the artwork intrigues me. This is what I love about the Mars Volta, strange images like this. Let's see here, let's take you around the artwork. Then of course you got La Villa, La Vasquez, the Latin influenced track. Then you have Miranda That Ghost Just Isn't Holy Anymore. Bunch of strange artwork. Almost looks like a person. I don't know what that is, but I'll leave it for you to decide. Please do post in the comments of your interpretations of this artwork here. This actually should be on the Widow track artwork, because this guy looks like a widow crawling down a tree, but I don't know why they didn't do that. I'll peel back all of my skin. Lovely thoughts. Then you have more strange lyrics, and actually the strangest lyrics here, La Villa, La Vasquez, are in Spanish. So learn Spanish and you can hear some of the strangest lyrics. So anyway, that covers the booklet, and now I've told you already, so you probably already know what's behind this. And of course I'll show you the CD first. More artwork here, and of course the FBI warnings on the side. Then you have the information of the track that is not included on the album of the same name. Gotta love the Mars Volta. Lyrics are strange as well. Then I'll just tell you the movements. In 13 seconds, 19 sink while 6 would swim, 5 would grow, and 1 was dead. So, anyway, so now that we've gone over the physical aspects of the album, now we will go over the lyrics and just each individual track. So, there we go. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed looking at the physical aspects of the album, like the booklet and the jewel case and the artwork within the album. But now we're going to go track by track, and I'll tell you how each sounds like. So we're going to start with the first track, Cygnus, Vismid Cygnus. And the movements in the album are sarcophagy, umbilical syllables, facilis, decinus, avirni, and consafo. So basically, the album starts off with this acoustic motif. You're going to hear it throughout the album. And then it actually has sound effects with it as well. What's characterizing this album is vocal reverb, time signature changes significantly, and you have extreme guitar virtuosity. A lot of guitar soloing in this track. And then, obviously, the vocals are typical of Mars Volta style, and they put effects on the vocals as well, which is I like that about this band. And you get a doo-wop vocal ensemble, sort of like when you hear all the band members come together, like ooh, they come together. So it just reminds me of doo-wop. And then you have, of course, more time measure changes and some mellotron. Then the next movement is calmer, and it starts off only with bass and light guitar, but and it's very atmospheric. It gives me the feeling that I am under the sea, and it slowly increases in intensity. Then the vocals come back, and you have more guitar soloing. Then there's a lot of intensity to this track. Then it fades out with little mellotron. Then at the end you have sound effects, you have women crying, vehicles, electronic beats. Then there's a little bit of distortion in there as well. And then we move on to the next track called The Widow. This is by far the most commercial track on the album. Then part 1 of it is the most commercial part. You have, of course, vocals, acoustics. The vocals remind me of like the blues, if you will. And it is a ballad / blues song, because it's about love. It's either about love or a literal widow. I would like to believe it's about a literal widow climbing the walls, but it's probably not. It's probably metaphorical. But knowing the Mars Volta, maybe it's not metaphorical. So, and then you have more instrumentation that enters later. The guitars are atmospheric. Then the famous line of the song is, "I'll never, never sleep alone." That's the chorus of the track. Then you have trumpet towards the middle to the latter part of the track. So, and then part 2 of this track is the less commercial part, and they do not include this part on the single for commercial reasons. But this part reminds me of like a Scooby-Doo running, but they loop the sound. This is exactly what it reminds me of. And then you have, of course, some synth in there, and then it distorts out, and then it fades into the next track, which is La Via Le Vasquez. This one starts calm, but then picks up. Much of the lyrics are in Spanish or in Espanol. There's a Latin vibe when they go into the chorus. Do like do 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 do. Do 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 do. Enough of that. Then it starts out slow, and then it goes into a fast beat. Then of course you have more guitar virtuosity. Then you have strange vocal effects towards the end, and then after all the chorus and the regular beats, you have just a plain Latin jam without any vocals at all, and then you have some sound effects like from a Latin restaurant, if you will, of Latin people of Spanish people talking, and then the vocals just get creepy at the end. So then at the end you have, of course, the coqui, the Puerto Rican frogs, and their sound at the end, signaling into the next track, or the next piece, I should say, is Miranda. That ghost just isn't holy anymore. And the first movement is, they do it alphabetically, like A dot, vade, mecum. And then it begins with the frogs, of course, from the previous track, and it makes an ambient soundscape. Then you have distant vocals. Oh, this is my favorite part of this piece, because it creates an atmosphere, and I'm a big fan of atmospheres, particularly dark ambient atmospheres, and this track sets it straight into making it into a dark ambient piece. But of course, since it's progressive, it changes later on, and then acoustic guitars enters with a little bit of distortion and some orchestral sounds in the background. And then this is actually the track that, in my opinion, they refer to as the spaghetti western track, which actually the band members wanted to have the feeling of a spaghetti western in their album, so I believe this is the track they put that influence in. And the vocals enter here. After the vocals, the trumpet and sound effects enter. Then the next movement is called Pour Another Ice Pack, it's a very abrupt entrance into this movement. It's fast paced, you have guitars, etc., and then a slower pace enters. Then you have a robotic voice effect in there. And you have normal vocals as well. Then you have a lot of trumpet virtuosity here as well. So. Then the next movement is Pissarius. You have a abrupt transition from B, and then I honestly I was very impressed by the vocal effects in this track. It seems to be about an animal or something. The vocals are very strange in this track, and that's a theme you see throughout this album. It's the strange vocals, and that the lyrics do not make any sense whatsoever, which I admire this band for doing that, because too many bands fall into this metaphorical trap of doing love songs, and each track, which you think has cool lyrics, is metaphorical for a thing as abominous as love. So that's just a band, that's just a trap all these bands fall into, and it suppresses creativity, in my opinion. But the Mars Volta break from that trap, with maybe an exception from the Widow. But anyway, I'm going in a rant again, but this track seems to be about an animal, and then you have acoustics, and the piano has a very sinister Nor sound to it. So, then the next movement we have here is called Consapo, and you have a high vocal tone here, and that's about all that I saw notable from that track. So the next piece that we have is Cassandra Gemini. First movement is called A dot Tarantism. You have guitar, vocal synths on this track, as well as vocals go to whisper on this track, and the vocalist has a lot of talent on this album. And they had some slurping sounds to it. It does some weird stuff. Then you have some Rhodes piano, and then regular piano, and it ends on a calm note. It's rare on this album. Anyway, then the next track, not the next track, the next movement is Plant a Nail and the Navel Stream. Then you have bass, guitar effects at the beginning. Then the next movement is Famine Pulse. You have a trumpet, jam, some vocals. Then the next movement is Multiple Spouse Wounds. It's a continuation vocal-wise of the previous movements. Then of course you have E. This one ties the album together. Sarcophagy, because it goes all the way back to the beginning of the album, which was not from the from the beginning of the album. Cygnus Vismut Cygnus from that movement called Sarcophagi. So in reality, this album could be an endless loop, because this goes back to the beginning. You can loop it again, but that brings us to the next question. Francis the Mute, where the heck is the title track? First of all, they should have included this track in the album. I have no idea why. And if they would have included it, they could have bypassed the restriction of the being paid EP wages, but it doesn't make sense why they didn't include it. So I'd love to have a discussion in the comments about that. Please include in the comments below, why do you think they didn't include the track Francis the Mute? Of course, there's an obvious reason that they wanted to include in a single or something, but please include it in the comments below. I'd love to discuss it with you guys. But anyway, I actually listened to the track itself, but for the sake of the album, I'm going to review that track as well. So basically, the track begins with a soundscape as well. It begins with clanging sounds, very sinister sound. Then other sounds actually come into the album as well. Then, as is so typical, the Mars Volta fast tempo all of a sudden appears with vocals and light drumming. And then you have some light guitar, piano with vocals, then some effects and tempo rises. So, and then here's the part. This is clear evidence this track should be in this album. You can hear the acoustic motif, the same motif you hear from Sarcophagi, from both of those pieces, or from Cygnus if you want to get specific there. This should lead people to conclude that this song was intended as the first track of the album. So I'd love to have that discussion with you guys, so please post in the comments if you think this track should be in the album. And also include in the comments, what are your general impressions about this album? This album impressed me very much and included so many genres in one album. I'm very impressed, and it's worthy of many listens. So I give this album 9 out of 10 because it's because in my opinion it's just an album that breaks the boundaries. And some people, like these commercialist tools, say that it's all just pretension and all just noise. But in my opinion, this is music. And so I hope, to my requestee, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I did justice to the album. But anyway, I'll actually be reviewing some more Mars Volta albums soon, so these two I'll be reviewing soon. And if, oh, might have done that one. Nocturnicate, these two I'll be reviewing soon, so. And please, I encourage all of you, please put requests in here, so I can listen to new music and make judgments about it, so you guys can hear it. So, thanks again for listening, and I promise more videos come out more frequently. It's just, I tried to make this video as perfect as I could, but hopefully I did it pretty good this time. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Prog on, and experiment.